Hello everyone, my name is Lokesh Chachu and welcome to my Omnistudio crash course. So Omnistudio, you must have heard of it getting widely adopted these days, stating it's quick and easy. But what is Omnistudio and how do you get started with it? If you are having confusion over this, do not worry, you are at the right place. In this video, I'll go through some basic concepts regarding Omnistudio and we will also see that in action. Then we will see through an implementation for it, as what's better to learn something than to get some hands on. So Omnistudio is a suite of tools with a unified platform which helps you create solutions to meet unique needs of your business. It can be your e-commerce store having order management or a customer interaction service, or can be your insurance system which displays products, create codes and policies for you and does the claims management. It can also be your financial cloud which does a loan processing or wealth management for you. Name it all, Omnistudio has got a wide range of applications. So what is Omnistudio? It's a low-code tool with a drag and drop setup. The current trend of Salesforce is low-code versus pro-code. And Omnistudio is one such low-code tool that can help you create tailor-made solutions without extensive coding expertise. It can help you create experiences with guided interactions using data which resides in your Salesforce org, or it can be your external system too. So why Omnistudio? With a drag and drop configuration and going with clicks rather than custom code, it is quick and efficient with a reduced development time and cost. And this is what every customer wants today. It helps you rapidly build and deploy a digital first and also industry specific experiences across channels and devices, thereby enabling greater self-sufficiency for your employees, your consumers and partners. So let's have a look at the basic structure of this Omnistudio. It has three layers. The first is digital experience, which deals with the UI part, and the one which is interacting with the user. The service layer or the service management layer deals with the data part. Then comes a developer experience, which consists a set of tools which help you migrate your Omnistudio components from one environment to another. The digital experience layer, it consists of the declarative tools which helps you provide rich user interaction experiences that can be easily understood. It does that via the Flexcard and this Omniscripts. And this Flexcard and Omniscripts, they're built on Salesforce Lightning Web Components. So they run inside Salesforce and have an improved UI performance too. The service layer includes all your data service, like reading the data, writing the data, transforming your data, or doing some calculation basis of your data. It does that via the data raptors and integration procedures, which deliver data to and from the UI components. Meaning in the Omniscript, suppose you're having something as an input and basis of the input, you want some data from your database. So the Omniscript will call the data raptor or the integration procedure, which in turn will send back the response to the Omniscript, which the required data. So that is how your experience layer and the service management layer will interact with each other. The next is the developer experience layer, which is a layer for tools for developer like the IDX build tool, which is a command line automation tool that packages and migrates Omnistudio data packs in a source control friendly format. So what is a data pack? It's nothing but a collection of your Omnistudio components packaged together for exporting and importing purposes. For simple migrations, you can simply export and import the components as a data pack, which is like having Flexcard, Omniscript, Data Raptor integration procedure inside one block. Or for a larger migrations or a complex migrations, you can use your IDX build tool, or you can go with the IDX workbench, which is a desktop application that helps enable developers migrate data packs and the Salesforce metadata from one org to another. So the main building blocks of Omnistudio, which fits the puzzle of that, is these four: Omniscripts, Flexcard, Data Raptors, and integration procedures. So the Omniscript provides a guided path to a complete business process. The Flexcard are the cards which are displaying some contextual information, and what you see is what you get editor. The data raptors are the configurable services which helps you retrieve, transform, and update your data. And the integration procedures are your declarative server-side processes that help you execute multiple actions in a server call. By multiple actions, it can be a call to a Apex class, or running a rule engine, or calling an external API, or doing some business logic which is required by the process, or calling a series of data raptors. So everything is bundled in this integration procedures, and everything is done in a single server call. Instead of doing round trips for each of them, we can have that in a single server call. So that is what integration procedures are. And the best part, all of these building blocks are reusable and can be used across. So the data raptors have some types which are classified into four. The first one being the turbo extract, which reads the data from a single Salesforce object type. So also supporting the fields from the objects which are in relation to that. Since it's only a single object type, it is comparatively faster. The next is extract. Now, what if you don't want data from a single object type, but from different type of data, different object types? You will go back to the extract, which does that. It also does help some field mappings also. Say, for example, you're having a field called name underscore underscore C, but you want to return the information as name. So you can do that transformation inside this extract only. It also supports some formulas, like say, for example, the name field in the account is just a name field, but you're having a first name and last name. So you can use a formula to concatenate them and add that in the field called name. Transformation does some intermediate data transformations without need to read or write from the Salesforce. You can do that in that transform only. An example can be like transforming your complex API response, which you are getting, to a simpler one, which you want. Then comes the Data Raptor load, which updates the data in the Salesforce from a JSON or the XML input which you provide to it. So how do you get started with your Omnistudio? So hop onto this link, you'll get a trial org, sign up for that, and you will have your Omnistudio package installed, and you can see all the basic building blocks of your Omnistudio there. So you can open this link, which will take you to this promo org. You'll have to give your name, email address, your role, company, postal code, username, and just click on sign me up, which will give you an org where you'll have that Omnistudio installed for you. The next is viewing the namespace and the version of your Omnistudio. How you can do that? So let's hop on to our demo org. You can go to your setup, and in the setup, just type install package, which comes under the packaging. Once you click on this install packages, it will load this page for you of the install package, and there you can see you're having your Omnistudio package installed, and you can see this version too. Setup is just as going to this gear icon and click on setup, which will bring this particular screen for you. Why you should know this namespace and version? Suppose you want to use a custom LWC inside your Omniscript, so you'll have to know your namespace, because the namespace the Omnistudio has is different from what you have in a normal Lightning, since it's also a package. Also, like if you want to expose your Omniscript as a button, you need to know the namespace. Now, whenever you come across Omnistudio, you'll always come across this term Omnistudio for velocity or velocity. So what is the difference between these two? So Omnistudio standard uses a standard object model and is mostly used currently. Omnistudio for velocity uses a custom object model. And the reason is because of this model difference. You'll see the two versions are having not the exact features always. Omnistudio is more for a more general purpose, and the Omnistudio for velocity was mostly built for the industry specific solutions. Now, how you know, or how will you know which version of Omnistudio package is installed in your org? So you can go to your setup and type this Omni interaction configuration. There you'll see a entity or an entry named first installed Omni package. If that is present, it means you're using an Omnistudio standard one. If not, you're using an Omnistudio for velocity. So let's hop on there. In the setup, just type Omni interaction configuration. This will open up and you can see there is a first installed Omni package and you're having the name as Omnistudio, which means this org of mine is using a standard Omnistudio package. So let's quickly hop on to a Omnistudio designer demo or how the Omnistudio components like the Omniscripts, the Flexcard, the Data Raptors, and the integration procedure looks like. So let's hop on to that. So once you have signed for your org and you are inside this Omnistudio org, in the app launcher, which is this 9 dots, you can just type Omnistudio, which will show an app for you. So just click on this particular app, which will open up and show all the Omnistudio components here, which is the Omniscripts, Flexcard, Data Raptors, and integration procedure. So you can navigate to any of this tab and get started with that. So let's first go to the Omniscripts tab. So once we click on this Omniscript tab, you'll see a list of Omniscripts which are already there, which is the last modified date, the last modified by user, if it's active or not, and things like that. So just to get started, just click on this new, which will open up a dialog box for you where you have to give the name of the Omniscript, the type of the Omniscript, subtype, language, and description of the Omniscript. Type can be something which you can use across your project. Suppose you're going for a project. In that project, you can give a same name so that you know like this particular set of Omniscript belong to this particular kind of project. And the subtype can be whatever utility the Omniscript performs. Language can be English or anything as for your requirement. And name can be something which can be a combination of type, subtype, or something which you give. So let me choose my type as my first, and let me give my subtype as Omni. And let me give the name as my first Omniscript. In the description, let me give this as my first Omniscript. Now, once I click on save, this will open the designer view for me, which will consist of a few components. The first being the header part, which consists of a very high level metadata about your Omniscript, like the type, subtype, the language, which version it is, whether it's active or not, and a description about this. The next is this navigation, from which you can access and navigate between your active and inactive steps, actions, setup elements. So this is what the navigation part is. So if you see, there's this thing called step here. So each step basically means each page of your form. And this is the whole canvas where you will bring your components from this build section, which can have things like actions, display, functions, group, inputs, or you can also embed other Omniscripts inside that. The next is the setup, which consists of the optional script-wide settings, which is applicable throughout this Omniscript. One such thing is reusable, which basically means you're enabling the Omniscript to be embedded into another Omniscript when this is checked. Then there is a step chart option, which basically gives you an idea of in which step or in which page of the form you are. So you can choose to hide this also, or you can show it somewhere related to your Omniscript. This can be done by this step chart placement. It can be your right, it can be at the left, it can be at the top too. The next is the theme, which is a set of brand guidelines and the design specifications. The options for you are Lightning and Newport. Lightning tends to the storm manual standard Salesforce Lightning, and Newport is a CSS framework which references to the velocity style guide. So that's how a particular Omniscript designer looks like. So next, just hop on to another designer experience, which is the Flexcard. So you choose the Flexcard tab here, and similar to your Omniscript, just click on New. So unlike this Omniscript, the Flexcard has some different set of fields here. So you can give a name like my first Flexcard. A child card basically means, can you, just like the Omniscript, you wanted to embed that into another Omniscript, you can also embed a Flexcard into another Flexcard. Suppose I don't want this Flexcard as a child source, so I won't check this. In the description, I can give something like my first Flexcard. Then I click on next. You have to choose your data source type here, which will act as a source for your Flexcard. Suppose if you're not sure if it's coming from where, you can just click on this none and you can change it afterwards. It can also come from a SOQL query, from a Apex call, from a REST callout, from a data raptors, from an integration procedure, or a custom JSON too. So once you click on this save, I've chosen no, this will open the Flexcard designer for you. This also consists of a header, which will give you some options like what was the name or what was the author of this Flexcard. It can also show you like which actions you can perform on the Flexcard, like preview, clone, activate it, export it, which is the as a data pack, and also like you can add some custom CSS to it. The next is again the canvas and the build part, which is similar to your OS. This is the canvas and this is the build part where you can show something like fields, or you can display something here. You can have your inputs also here. The varieties of this is obviously less than the Omniscript, but yeah, it shares of property too. The next part is this style part, which you can apply it as per your page wise or as per your element wise too. You can configure your backgrounds, you can configure your sizes, your border radius, your alignment, whatnot. The next thing is the setup, which consists of the one option is the data source. So you can also change it from here. That is one of the most critical part of this. You can also have event listeners. Like if you fire some event from some place, you can have this as an event listener too. And you have a repeat options. Like suppose if you're passing this flex card, a custom JSON, which is an array. So you can just need to define that for a single card, like it will have a name and a date of birth. And if you click on repeat, it will just manage it because this checkbox is checked here. Also, like with this preview button, you can preview your flex card in real time to test its design and its functionality. So that is how your flex card designer looks like. Now let's hop on to another one, which is integration procedures. So you have to go to this particular tab of integration procedure. Again, click on new, which will open the designer for you. Here you have to give your integration procedure a name and a type and subtype. So similar to my Omniscript, I have to give a type subtype, but not a language here. So let me give the name as my first IP. And suppose I give my first IP here. Now in the description, let me also give this my first IP. Now there's an option called rollback on error, which basically means if an error occurs, it will roll back all the DML statements which are there inside our IP. There's also a chainable options, which is basically meant for the long running process, and a few couple of other settings too. And once you're done with that, you have to click on save, which will basically create the integration procedure for you. And you also have a designer for this, which is like the available components where you can include use a conditional block, a loop block, a try catch block. You can call your expression set, which are the set of rules. It can call a data raptor extract, post, transform, turbo. You can have a delete action. You can send an email. You can call another integration procedure format. You can perform some operation in basis to the list. You can do or call a decision matrix or call an apex class also. And response action is something like a return statement of this IP. So this is how your integration procedure looks like. You also have the option of activate here. This button also you can export it. So activate, you can activate an integration procedure Omnistudio can call it. And only one version active. So this is what integration looks. Now let's hop on to another part, which is the data raptor. It's the same step. Go to the data raptor. You will see your list of data raptors here. Click on new. It will open the design for you and then ask you for your data raptor name. Let me my first raptor. It will interface the data raptor. It can extract, load, it can be transferred. Go with one. The input type can be Oracle and save for your type. So once I click on this save, this will open a data raptor for me. And I can. So once I'm in this data raptor, I just extract part. I need to click on which extract step I need to do, which is like defining which object I'm going to bring my data from. So I choose account here, and then I need to give which path or which node all the data will come for me. So I choose suppose account. Here you can add your filters also. Like suppose I give the filter as name and say name is equal to, it can also be like not equal to, like not like, say for example James. You can also apply limit here, or you can do an order by, and you can add additional conditions and define them under and or. Suppose I order by name, and let's go for a preview here. So you see it is scoring the results for me, but it's not giving me any output because I've not mapped the output part here. So once you're in here, this extract JSON path, this is like what input we are getting from that object, which is account, and output is something I'm going to return here. So let's just click on this plus icon to add a mapping. Suppose I need to return the name, and in the output, just give it as name here. So see, this name is the field in the account object, and this name is something I'm putting in the return. I can add another mapping here, say for example, phone. So I just need to type phone and it will bring that phone field also for me. So let me click on that phone, and in output, I just give it as phone here. So now that my output mapping is done, I can choose which fields I want. Let me click on execute. And this brings the name for me. Why not phone? Because the phone field is not there, it won't bring those null fields here. That is one feature I can say for this. So if I click on this override target for null inputs, see, you'll get this phone number as blank. Since it was blank, by default, the Omniscript Data Raptor or the Omnistudio Data Raptor won't give you that field, but if you choose this field as override target for all null inputs, it's gonna return you those values. So that is what a Data Raptor looks like. So now that we have seen the basics of Omnistudio, let's hop on to a use case and then we'll see its implementation. So Travelco is a travel agency that takes basic user information like name, their phone number or email from various social platforms, which are then feed into the Salesforce org as a lead. Now, the agent can use this lead and call the customer and get some more information about the customer so that he can tell him about the trip codes and he can proceed further. But this trip code comes from a legacy system. It's an external system where they will give some inputs like what's the budget, which place they want to go, and how many travelers are there, and maybe date. So basis of that, it will give you some trip codes, and that information will be returned and displayed in our Omniscripts. And post that, whatever action the user wants to take ahead, he wants to whether go ahead with the code or maybe he wants to call later, or he wants to reject that code and say, I don't want to go ahead with the plan itself. So everything that will store that in the Salesforce system. So whatever user interaction was done for that particular lead will be stored back in the Salesforce system. So that is the use case for us. So let's hop on to the implementation for it. So this is my basic Omniscript, from which I'll start with. So I'm named this as a travel go, and it's English. let me come to the first step or the first screen which will be visible to you. This will consist of the basic information which we have filled in the lead in the social media, and that has come to us as a lead, like the first name, the last name, the email, the phone numbers. Let me deactivate this so I can show you about each elements and how they were done. So now that the Omniscript is in inactive state, we can now make changes to the Omniscript. When it's in active mode, we cannot make any changes. We can still view whatever is there in the Omniscript, but we cannot make any changes here. So once I've deactivated this, so that is my first step, which I've named it as lead info. And there's a field called chart label. So this step chart, which we have to configure whether which shows us like in which step or in which page of the flow we are in. That is where the step chart option. I've kept it as right, and I'm not hiding the step chart now. And this label is something like whatever I want to display in that particular navigation item, that will come as lead info, the chart label. Next up, I have a field of text, which I can simply go to build, and let's type text. So it will show me things like to display the text block, but we want a user input. So I'm going with the text input. So now once I come here, I can fill the name of this. I can choose what label I want to show. I can choose whether this field is required or it can be just read only. Do I want to set a default value for this? Or do I want to mask this particular field? What's the max size? What's the min size? We can do it all. We also have the help options here, which I can show it to help the user like what does this field means. And also we have a validation option for this, which will check for a regex pattern and likewise display error message for us. This can also be shown conditionally based on the condition which we click on that. It can be based of any field which we are choosing here. It can be equal to, less than equal to, and you can add your conditions and change it to any conditions also. You can also group them. The next field for me is last name, which I've given it a last time here. So this name you see here, that is a unique API name, I would say, for each of the element. And that is how we can access the value of each of this element. So if I name something as lead last name, I want to use it at a further step or a further page, I can use it using the name. The same I've done it for the last name also. It is a required field here and a maximum length of 255. Then there's an email, which is another type of input. So if I type here email, I can drag this input from my from this build to my canvas, which will show an email input for me, and we can set the properties for this. So it has a name, it has the field label, it can be required, it can be read only, it can have a default value too, similar to what we had for the text, and more or less you'll find things very similar to this. Next is a phone number, and there's an alternate phone number. So this alternate phone number also, it's a type of input. So if you type phone here, you'll get a telephone type of input with properties like what will be the mask pattern, which is like whenever you enter something, it will transform to a particular format for you. That can be done just using this mask property. Then we have this minimum length, the maximum length, and more or less the same values for this. This is what the first step will come, and it will show me what are the lead information. Now, since we know the lead is already there in the system, I would still want those lead to be pre-filled with some values because it's already there in the system. Why would the agent waste time to again enter this input? So this can be done via Data Raptor Extract, which is getting values from your data. So this can be done by just going to the build and typing Data Raptor. So this will bring in Data Raptor Extract, Post, Transform, or Turbo Action. So based on your use case, we can choose Extract or any of this. I've chosen Extract. There's a reason for that. So let me hop onto this Data Raptor first. So this name get lead details is what I have mentioned. Get lead details is what I have mentioned here. This will be the Data Raptor interface name which you have to give. And once we come to this Data Raptor, it's a type of. Once I'm in this Data Raptor, which is get lead details, which is what the name I'm passing it here in the Data Raptor get lead details. So this consists of like which object I'm going to take my data from, which is lead object, and what path the output should come. Then we have a filter called ID, which should be equal to a context ID. So that's input we are passing it to my data raptor. I'm passing this particular input, this context ID. It's done via this one, where in the input parameters, we can give the data source, which is the name of the field we are passing from the Omniscript, and then in which attribute it should go, which is the filter value, that is the context ID, which is mentioned in the lead input here, which is context ID. Next up, let's just quickly preview it. I've given an ID for a lead here and just execute it once. So this will give me lead first name, lead last name, lead email, and lead phone number. If you notice here, you have this lead first name. This is similar to the name we have given in this particular element, which is the lead first name. So if these two names match, what it will do is it will automatically set the lead first name text field with this value called Jeff. So that is the advantage of using extract here. Likewise, we can do it for the last name, email, as well as phone number. Now, how are this value coming like lead first name? Because these are not the actual API names of the lead fields. So let's go to the output. We do a transformation here, which is the extract JSON path and the output JSON path. So the extract JSON path is basically, you can say, the left hand side, which is the input, which is the all the fields of the lead object which we are querying using this particular extract. And then we have the output JSON path, which is something we want to return from our data raptor. So you can see like there's a lead first name here, which is being mapped to lead first name field. Suppose if I want to add any other field, let's just take for example address. So what I can do is I can just type here address. That field will automatically, all the fields of lead will pop up here in this extract JSON path. And here in the I've chosen this address, and where should this address come in the output? Let's choose address here. So if I click on address here, see this address will come automatically here. If I don't want this particular field, I can just simply click on this delete icon, and this will delete it for me. So that's how this Data Raptor extract has been configured here. So let's see that in action quickly. So if I click on this preview, I have this ID already set up in my context ID. If you see here, I'm getting Jeff glimpse. So for this particular lead ID which I was using here, the Jeff name is getting carried forward here, the glimpse, the email, as well as the phone number. So everything gets carried forward here. So I've chosen the theme as Newport here. You can change it to Lightning also, which will show you how this will look if you have chosen the theme as Lightning. You can see the steps here too in Lightning, like currently I'm in the lead info step. The next step would be trip info, trip code, and confirm trip. So that is how you can say, yeah, I'm gonna go to the steps, and the user will know what's the next step of action, or which particular page he is currently in. I can also choose my preview mode, which is like if it's a desktop, or how it will look in a tablet, or how it's gonna look in a mobile. For both the themes, this is applicable. See, and the desktop too. The next thing is this action debugger. So whatever action I've taken it for this particular step to run. So all the server calls, which is like calling the data raptor or integration procedures or a HTTP callout, you can just click on that, expand it. You can see like what request did you send it. So I sent context ID with this particular ID, which is mentioned here. And what response, corresponding response I got here. So that you can see too here. Like the lead first name, lead last name, email, and the phone number. If something is wrong, you'll get something in the response like something was wrong. Also, let's come to this data JSON. So this data JSON is something which gets updated and created with each step and with each action you're taking in the Omniscript. This can be used to pass the same information to, say, an integration procedure or a remote action or an Apex call you're calling. Suppose if I type an alternate phone here, as soon as I enter this phone number, see this lead alternate phone number gets created in this JSON. So this is called the Omni JSON, and it's very critical. to get whatever inputs we are entering here, whatever action is happening here, those will get popped up here. There are some pre-filled values like the context ID or the which user profile it's running to, what's the username, what's the user ID, and things like that. So now that I'm done with the first step, let's hop on to the next step, which is the trip details. So now once I know, like I've seen the basic details of the lead which came through the social media, I know the basic information are correct. And then I'm gonna ask him like, where are you going to travel? And from where you are going to travel? What is the total person, the budget of your trip? Which are the expected date and what is the total day of your travels? So from traveling to, I've given an option of a drop down, which you can get it just by choosing a select here. So you'll get an input as select, which displays a drop down menu of values. There's also an option to get a multi-select, which is input to allow selection of multiple items. Like it will be kind of a select, but you can choose multiple items there. In the select, you can just choose a single value. So let's have a look at these properties. So likewise, all the field you'll have to give a unique name for this so that you can extract this value from somewhere. Then whatever label you want to display it here. And if it's a required or a read-only field. Now, what is the source of this particular select or the drop down? So from where will you get these values? You can choose S object, you can choose manual, you can choose custom. So if you choose manual, you can just enter your values directly here only. Or if you want to get it from a particular S object, you need to display or you need to choose S object, and then in the source, you have to give this name in the format like which S object you want to get the data from and which field of that S object you want to get this data from. So suppose I have a custom object called account trip details, and from there I'm getting the value from traveling to. So I'll just go to this particular account trip detail object for me, and this is the traveling to API name of the field. So the field label is travel location, but the API name is traveling to. So we'll always have to give that API name here for the object as well as the field. So object name dot something, so it will bring me whatever values are there in this particular field, which is the 6 or 7 values here. The same goes for traveling from. So I'm choosing the same object and I'm going with a traveling from option, which is the field of this particular from where I should get my value. Total persons is a number field. So I can just type here number, drag it to the canvas, and then I can set its property. It can be required or non-required, read only, the same set of options you have for a normal text. Then is the total budget, which is a currency field. So to choose that thing in the build, go to currency, you'll have a currency input and you can just drag it here. The properties again are very similar. There might not be properties which are there in the number, but there are few properties which are already there. Things like required or what placeholder or what value you want to show for this as a placeholder. The name is always required. You can have your help options. You can have the format options. Like if you want some decimal places, you want to mask this. What's the minimum value for this? Do you want to hide any comma separators or not? So that's up to you. You can set all this value. So this particular currency field in the setup, if you go, you can set this global value like throughout this script, what currency I should use. Suppose I've chosen INR. By default, it will take whatever is there in the org. But if you want, you can set it to other values also, like I've done it, say Indian rupee INR. The next is the date field, which you can go to build and again type a date here, which is an input field for date. You also have a date time, but we don't need a time as of now. We just are okay with having the date as an input. So once you choose this, you have to give your name, field label, required or non-required. Here we can set the format of this, which is like YYMMDD. Also, you can choose a minimum date, like suppose if it's today. So all the dates prior to this particular today date, which is the current date, it will disable those fields because ideally like we should not choose a date in the past for my expected day of travel. So that's how I can configure my date properties here. The next is the total days of travel, which is again a number field. So once we are done, we can move ahead to our next step. Also, one thing, for each step you have an option. You will see like there's a next and previous. So that you can do, go to this particular step, click on that. In the step properties, you'll hover down. You can see there's a button property. So you can change the label also, like say, for example, instead of previous, we just want to give back. Instead of next, you want to say get quotes. So it will automatically change the values here. You can also set the width for your buttons. It can be in a dimension of 3 to whatever you want. You also have a save for later button, which is like if the agent wants to go back for some time, code for some time, and then come back and resume his Omniscript, he can use this save for later button. So let's quickly see that in action too. I'll again go to my preview mode. I should have the lead values populated here. So let's move ahead by going to the next. And here I'll see my traveling to. So it should ideally be the same values as I saw that in the field, which is the set of values. So let me just choose this, say, Rishikesh, and suppose I'm traveling from Delhi. Now suppose total persons with me should be 2, and just let me just click on this get codes. So since this field is required for the budget, it will show you error. This is a standard feature, which is like when you have marked a field as required, this will give you in this format. Now suppose let me give the budget for this. So see, since I've chosen INR, it will show me the value of the currency symbol as rupee. I can choose my expected date of travel. So since we have given a validation for today's date, which is 19th, so it will be disabled for all other dates prior to this, but I can always choose a future date here. Basis of that, I can configure my particular step. Likewise, if you see this trip details, that's the step name of this. Inside this, we have a trip location, we have a trip origin, we have a trip total passenger. So all of these values will be carried forward here. So let me just quickly pick any date out of here. So this date will also come in the format like DD MM5A, which we have given in the properties of this date field. So now I've got my basic details about my customers. So now my next task is to go and get my trip codes. So for this, I need to make a call out here. So for to make a call out, you have two options. You can either like go for a HTTP action directly here and just make a call out directly from here. But I have some things like some transformations to do here. So I'll choose a integration procedure, which is like which will patch my HTTP call out. It will patch my transformation I need to do everything into a one single server call. Else I'll have to use two things like HTTP action. I'll have to tag a data raptor transform also, but that would mean calling the server two times. But why do that when we have the option to do it only single? So that's why we are going to go with integration procedure. So to get the integration procedure, again go to your build and type integration procedure. So you should be able to drag this particular IP here, which is a short form of integration procedure. Usually we use those short forms like integration procedure will be an IP, a data raptor will be a DR, or a Omniscript will be OS. So that is like some abbreviations we do use commonly. So let's go to the properties here. I'll give a unique name for this. Then I'm going to choose which particular integration procedure I'm going to go forward with. So suppose this name is travel get TR, which is what I've given the name. So the name is this type underscore subtype. So let me open this particular integration procedure and let's see what it is doing here. So for every integration procedure, you'll have a properties for a procedure configuration. So that test name is type and this subtype is get TR. So this is what we have to mention here also, which will give me also, like if you don't remember the name, you can just type something and it will give you the options like what are the available options for you. Invoke mode for integration procedure can be in default, which is like a normal way. Then it's a non-blocking and then it's a fire and forget. Non-blocking means it will keep working in the background, but it won't stop you from moving to the next step. Fire and forget is something like it will similar to an event like or a platform event which you fire, like it will fire that thing and it will keep on continuing. It might or might not run in background also. So this can be done for something logic like which you want to not be a part of this, say, Omniscript, or not immediately required by you. Some back calculations maybe. But for now, let's go with the default option. And then we have some remote properties, which is like you can use that in future. You can use it as a chainable for long running calls. You can have this continuation also. And then you can send those extra values you want to send, which can come in the extra payload. So I'm sending the trip location, which is required, like which location I'm gonna go to. Then there's a trip budget, and then there's a total number of passengers traveling with me. So these are the key value pair we have to send. So this key is basically the input of those particular integration procedure. And this is the value I'm passing. So send this anything value, we have to use those merge fields. So anything within this ampersand are called merge fields. So the trip location is the name of the trip location field. So this trip location field I have to mention here. And this is going as an input to my integration procedure. Let's go to remote properties again. This is my trip location here. The same is for the trip budget and the total trip passenger. So that is how you can send some value to your integration procedure, and you can configure it from your Omniscripts. You can also use this response. So whatever response you're getting, if you want to say trim that part, you can use response JSON path. If you want to rename whatever value you're getting from the response, you can use this response JSON node also. You can also send out a JSON path, which is like one of the Omniscript data JSON which you're preparing. You can also pass that out here in your send JSON path. Instead of configuring everything in those extra payload, you can alternatively just pass this value also here. So let's come to this travel codes. So for this, in this integration procedure, I have a series of actions here. So the first action is get the API configuration. Since I'm making a call out to my external system, so whatever configurations I need to maintain, I am using a metadata for it. And since it's just a single metadata, I can use a turbo extract, and I do not need to do any transformation also for this. So what I'll do is I'll just drag a Data Raptor turbo action from here. So this will take me, let me just deactivate it so I can show some actions. So that's my Data Raptor extract here. And I'm going to send some input parameters to it, which is like the configuration name. And suppose it's the trip code for me. So you can open this particular Data Raptor from here. So just let me click on this link icon here. This will open the Data Raptor for me. So this is a turbo extract which I'm using here. So if you see, unlike the one we saw in the lead, it's not having any output or a formula field. I'm just having an option of extract and preview and options, obviously. So here I can choose which object I want to query. So which is the API configs, which is my metadata I'm maintaining on my data here. Then what path it should come, and there's a filter like developer name equal to config name. So if you see, I was passing this in the filter value. So this config name is the name of the field which I'm using in the Data Raptor, and this data source is the actual value I'm passing to this. So it's a kind of a bit reverse here to what we are passing in the integration procedure. So this is the key you can say, and this is the value. So once I'm here, so unlike the Data Raptor extract, we have to specify which fields we are going to get here. So I'm getting my client ID, client secret, username, and password here. Once I'm done with that, let me just click on execute, and this is going to give me my data here, which is the API configs and all those things. So that is what I'm using it for, to get my initial configurations to make my call out. Next up, I'm going to call my endpoint, which is again another Salesforce org. So to make a call, I just need to get a token from this. So to get the token, I'll have to specify which HTTP endpoint I need to hit that, and which method. It's a post method to get your OAuth token. And then you can mention all your parameters in this param attributes. So here I'm passing my say grant type, which is password. the client ID, client secret, username, and password. So if you see here, the advantage of using this Data Raptor was I didn't want to expose my, you can say your client ID, client secret directly in the Omniscript. It's kind of encapsulated here. So whatever we are getting from this Data Raptor, we can just use the name of the attribute, and those metadata records can be configured in the backend itself. So no, even like if it changes, say in the future, the client ID or the client secret or the password even has changed, that would mean you have to again, had it been hard coded here, you can have to again come to this integration procedure and make the changes. But since it's not here, so no need for you to make any change in the integration procedure. This can be done via this attribute. So how are we getting this attribute? So this particular Data Raptor API config is the name of the element. So which is what we have to use here. Let me expand this rest options. This is what I'm using here, dr API config. And what response it was giving me? It was giving me the API config, which is the path name I've given here. And it's coming as an array, which is like it can be a list of multiple objects record also. So under this is an array. So I'll choose the first element of array. And in this, I have this ID and client ID, all the fields. That is my kind of JSON path, which I need to use here. So to get that, I'm going to use my first will be the which element, which is a Data Raptor turbo action, which is dr get API config, the name of that. Under that, I'm getting it from the API config. So which is what I've given a colon here. Now to get the first element of an array, it's something of a format like you have to give a pipe icon and then one. It doesn't start with 0, the index, it will start from 1 here for us. And then for this particular attribute, I'm going to get my client ID. So I'm giving the field name here. The same goes for this secret, which is the name of the element, which is dr get API config. Then inside that, it's getting a response of API config here. The first element of that, I'm going to choose my client secret. That is how I can put my values, which can be passed as a parameter to my HTTP action. So this HTTP action, you can come to this actions and you can just drag this particular element here. That's going to give you the token here. Now I'm setting my access token here, which is, so whatever value I'm getting from my get token from org and the access token. So this is like get token from my org. So for the set values is something like if you do want to do some sort of calculations here, or you want to trim all your responses and things like that, you can use this set values here and drag it in your canvas, and you can have a key value pair name here. So I've chosen access token here and I'm getting the value from this one. This strip location, well, I'm doing a transformation here. The reason being is since it's a string one, string value, and I'm just calling the standard endpoint of the Salesforce to get those values. So if it's a string value, you have to compare with that. You'll have to give another additional single quote here. That is why I've just concatenated this particular single quotes here inside this particular string. So that's how the value goes here. It's just a format. So we have done that operation or this manipulation here. So that's one of the advantages of using set values. You can do this at a single step so that you can use this particular values again and again. Like suppose you had to do a multiple calls here. So you can just use set the value at one time and you can use it at all the places. Instead of doing the changes at all the coming steps, you can just do it here itself. So that is another way of using the set values. Then I'm gonna actually now get my trip details, for which I'm again gonna call my HTTP action, drag the element, specify the endpoint, use my get method, and even in the endpoint, I can use my merge fields. Like suppose, say for example, I am using a merge field here to get in the where clause, like which location and it's a set access to token, which is this particular set values under which there's a trip location attribute which we have chosen, which is a trip location val attribute. So I can give that using the merge field symbol, which comes under this ampersand or the percentage sign. So this is how I'm going to get all my trip details from here. So once I get my trip details, this might not be the way I want the value to be. So I want to do some transformation here. So for this, we have a transform trip code. Let me close all of this first. So again, I'm going to click on this particular link, but just before that, for a transform, you have to specify which JSON path you are sending. So whatever value I'm getting from this get trip details in the HTTP action, I'm just passing this path here. So once I pass this, I can open my Data Raptor transform, which is another type of Data Raptors. Should open, or let me go to this Data Raptors list if it's not opening from here. It will bring me a list of my Data Raptors, like all the extract, turbo, extract, or the transform or your post will be there in this particular list. So while that's still loading, let me see if this has loaded here. Yeah, this has come here only. It took some time, but it is here now. So once you're in the transform, you have to specify if it's a JSON and an output JSON type. So in this input JSON type, I'll give what response I'm getting from my HTTP value. So this is for the input I am expecting, or I can tell that, yeah, you're going to expect this kind of input for this particular transformation. Then I can specify my expected output, which is like what way I need my output to be, like how I need my data to be transformed here. So I can specify this JSON here also. And then this, in this particular section, you can just do your transformations. Like just say, for example, this record name is going under the trip name. And I mean, you can just come here and all the values will be showing you here only. Whatever JSON nodes are here, it will show you here. And whatever mapping you have to do, you can just simply do it here. So the trip name, it's going to map to be trip name of the field. Likewise, it will for the travel cost, the travel date, travel description will go to travel description, the travel length, what is the trip ID, a unique ID for that. So everything will be there here. Now, there's just one more thing we have to do here, which is to get those trip codes. We are expecting these trip codes to be always in a form of array. Maybe you are just getting a single value. What it will do is it will just give you in an object format. But just to specify, it will always come as an array, which is what we are always expecting it to be. We can just choose the output data type as a list of map, which will basically signify it will come in the form of this array, and inside that it's going to have those key value pairs. So once I click on this preview, let me just click on execute. You see, that was my input of record, which I'm getting from the API. This is the sample response I got. I copied it somewhere and I can just use it to see how my value will come when I transform it. And if you see here in the trip codes, I'm getting it transformed here. So this trip code ID is coming as this. The valid date should be here down the line, which is the trip date. Likewise, your full details, which is coming here, and everything is like mapped here. So once I'm done with that, I'm done with the transformation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my response. So this response is nothing like simply is basically like a return option which you have in a method. But the advantage is here I can send multiple return values. How? Let's have a look at that. So this get it details, you're just going to drag this response action here. So the next is response action, which is get trip details. So what you can do here is basically the response action is similar to the return function of a method. It ends the integration procedure for you. And here you can return like you can either trim your responses, you can send your full response with this return full data JSON, or you can just send like additional output here. Like maybe you can add few attributes of key value pair, and you just want to send this additional outputs, then you can just click on this check return only additional output. Or like if you don't, I mean, if you want to send only this particular JSON path from the integration procedure, and apart from that, you want to send some other values, you can just configure it here. There's just one thing to keep in mind when you check this return only additional output as true. Do not check this return full data JSON as true. So here what we are doing is we are passing this DX trip codes, which is the data transform action which we are doing here. And we are sending this particular JSON as my response or the return value of this integration procedure. So let's see this integration procedure in action. So this trip location, which I'm passing the total passenger and total budget, you can add it this as like as a key value pair. You can add this and you can pass your values here too. Now let me just click on this execute. This should bring me the strip code details which I'm getting. So whatever transformation I was doing before, it will be seen here, and it's calling the Data Raptor to get my metadata values for the client ID, client secret, getting the token values via that endpoint, and then actually hitting the endpoint, which is getting the trip details for me, and then transforming it and showing me this output. So everything is patched into a single server call, which is this integration procedure. So you can have a look at like how your integration procedure ran with this debug logs. So let's go to the execution sequence first, which tells me like, first your dr get API config, which is getting the metadata ran. Then you ran get token from org, then set access token, get trip details, transform the trip codes, and then finally returning the response here. So let's have a look at individual nodes here that also you can see here with this debug logs. So all the name will become with this like dr get API config. This will contain like whatever values those particular elements return, and then there will be a node called with the same name and then a debug. So this will tell like what input you send to this particular element here. So for this, we are sending this config name as trip code, and in turn, it gave me a response like all those API names and my username and passwords. Likewise, then we are going to get a token from the org. So let's first have a look at this debug, which is like what I'm sending in my body, all those client ID and client secrets. Then I'm hitting this particular endpoint, and you can see those values of client ID, client secrets, and in the header, I'm passing this content type. As a response, it returned me an access token, which I'm going to use in my set values, which is setting the access token and the trip location with this single Rishikesh quotes. And then I'm going to call my get trip details debug. So for this, just have a look at the endpoint. So we are hitting this particular endpoint, that is the query we are writing here. And see this Rishikesh is coming in single quote. So that is how the way is for the standard way of calling the endpoint of Salesforce. So this is like just a way of doing that. So that's why we did that particular calculation here. We have this authorization via, and in turn, it returns me this particular response, like which records I'm getting. So those are similar to we see in this transformation here. This record, the strip codes, and yeah, those valid dates and all those values also here. The next is to get your dr code debug. Here we are sending all our values, what we have got from this records, and here we are getting all our trip codes in a transform way, and finally I'm returning this particular response here. So that is how your integration procedure will work. Let's quickly, and just one thing, this IP of this integration procedure should always be active, else this won't run in your Omniscripts. So let's quickly preview it for one of our use case. So for the same lead, I'm using that, and let me just minimize this. The name is coming, phone number are coming. I click on next. If I don't choose anything, it's gonna stop me. So let me go to this traveling to. I'm going from traveling from. Number of persons say are 2. My budget was say 12,000. My expected day of travel was say April 1st, and I'm traveling for say 3 days. So this, when I click on this gate codes, internally it's gonna call an integration procedure for me, which I can see in the action debugger here. So this get trip codes, let me minimize the other ones. So this get trip codes, and in the request setup, see we are sending this trip location, trip budget, and total passenger. That's the input for this particular integration procedure. And in turn, it's returning me the values of this trip. So now that we are done with the call, we have got our codes. Our next task is to display them. And how we are going to display those contextual information? We're going to use a Flexcard. So let's hop onto that Flexcard implementation also. So for this, I've created a Flexcard called travel code info. So the author name you have given, you can also have different versions for this, just like a flow. I had version 1, but I built on top of that, so I had this version 2 here. The status is active because for this particular Flexcard to be used inside my Omniscript, this needs to be active. This child card, it can be optional. Like if you're using this particular Flexcard inside another Flexcard, you can go for this child card. Now, for this Flexcard, what will serve as an input? So whatever response you were getting from your integration procedure, the callouts, that would serve as a response or sorry, the data source for this particular Flexcard. So to specify this, I'm going to go to my setup and I have to specify this data source as custom. So once I click on that, I can specify which node or which array I'm expecting here. And once you pass those values, you can just click on save and fetch and see it will show you this particular values here. Let me just quickly deactivate it so we can see that Flexcard in actions and do some modifications if I need to. So now the deactivation is done. So just keep that thing in mind, this custom JSON, it's an array input we are expecting. We're not passing the full node like the trip codes, everything which was coming. We're just passing this array node here. Once you specify this and click on save and fetch, you will see in the build, those fields will pop up here, which is like is selected, trip cost, trip date, and all those things, which are nothing but the values we are passing here from the Omniscripts. We have chosen this is selected specifically like just to see like which trip the user went ahead with. So that is just a dummy value we are passing from our Omniscripts. And from the Omniscript, the value is coming from this particular integration procedure. And this is coming in turn from this particular data transformation. So if you go here in the transform, there's a is selected value, which is defaulted to false. And that's what is getting carried forward to this Flexcard. So now our next task is to display all those elements. So what you can do is you can simply drag this particular elements, which fields which you're showing. So say for example, for this trip name, I can simply drag it here and show it here. So this trip name will pop up here with an element name that you can change. It's up to you. I've given the label as trip name. I have given this as an output because this is what I want to display. The field type is text for this because it's just a value which I'm showing. And this value will come from this particular trip name. So when you click on trip, you'll get multiple values, but ideally this trip name should come from this particular trip name itself. So that's one thing. You can also do some styling for it. So you can add a custom styling sheet here, or you can just choose a label, the color of this particular text. So what I'm doing is I'm choosing this particular color as the label color, which is the trip name. You can also align your text, choose a font size, do some decorations like making it bold. You can choose a background and things like that too. Likewise, I've dragged it for the price so that this price is now coming from trip cost, but the field type I've chosen it as currency. And this currency is in INR, so that's why I'm choosing this currency value as INR. You can resize this using this resize icon here, like this scale, and likewise you can do that part too. Then I'm showing my trip description here, which is again a text value. And then just to show my link, like, I mean, just to get the full details from where I'm getting my codes, I can show it via link. So for this link, what I've done is I've chosen an action property. So in the build, you can go to this particular action and you can drag this field here. This action can like work as a button. It can work as a navigation URL too. So this is what I'm using it here. So for this, I'm giving the label as get full details. And then you can choose an icon. If you want, you can hide the icon too. If you click on this search, you'll get a list of icons for Salesforce, which is there by default standard. You can choose any of these here. And once I'm done, so when I click on this, I mean, what should happen like when I click on this particular action button? There is, since the name is action, something should happen here. So for this, you have to choose an action. There should be action type chosen here, which is like a series of things like you can choose a card, you can choose an event, you can choose a flyout, which opens a pop-up, or it can be a navigate, which is for our case. Now, once you choose on this navigate, you need to choose what kind of things it will navigate to, whether it's an app, it's a community page, or a website. So it's a website for me. Once you specify the website, you can choose it's navigating to which URL. That URL is coming dynamically from my trip link field, where it should open this targeting. I can specify that. So once I'm done with that, I'm getting all my full details. Then I need to choose a button, which is like saying the user like, yeah, the user has gone ahead with this particular trip. So I can carry it forward and store it in my database. So for this, again, I've dragged the action property here. And for this, what I've done is, since this is I mean, this would be an array kind of thing here. So what I've done is I've chosen this as a card. For this card action type, what we can do is we can fire some events here. So once I'm going with this particular card and I choose this select card, this checkbox is coming. This is why because of this reason, like we have chosen this select card here. Then you need to give this particular node a name, like whenever you do some action on it, under which property this value should come. And whether if you can select a single, I mean, suppose if you're having a list of those trip codes, can you choose multiple of them or can you choose single of them? That can be done by here. Under which field, suppose it's a Boolean field, which I'm using is selected. So that data field, it will pre-select that card thing, like it can be true, it can be false. And if it's checked, it will populate the value in this particular field named as is selected. So like whenever you click on this particular button or this checkbox, it will set this as true. And for this particular card name, it's gonna choose a select card, and in turn it will fire a standard event here. So for this standard event, we need to catch it somewhere and we need to send it back to our Omniscript, because that will notify, yes, I've chosen this particular trip. So to catch this particular event and fire back to the Omniscript, what we can do is you can go to the setup and you have a event listener here. So just like a PubSub, you have a event, this model here also, you can listen to the event. So if you click on that and add new, it's a custom event which you're using, and the name would be select card. So select card is like that action type which we chose, and then there is a selected trip. So this selected trip should be same as the name you have given for this card. So this select card is the standard one, standard name you can say, underscore which, from which particular card list you want to get your value from. So I'm catching this particular event, and what I should do as an action for this, I'm updating my OS. So to update the OS, I can choose my action type, which you can add it from this add new. And this action type can be anything like reloading the updating the Omniscript, or reloading the Omniscript, or navigating to anything. So here I've chosen my updating Omniscripts, and I'm going to pass it to a travel codes node. And what I'm passing here is in this particular key, like selected trip details I'm passing this particular card. So all the values of this particular card will be passed down to this key named selected trip details under the parent node travel codes. So that's how you set up your event for this. And once I'm done with that, I, I just have one thing to do more, which is just have a look at this repeat options. So if I check this, what it would mean is this would basically repeat your data for you. I mean, say for example, I've just configured it for one of the element. And if you click on this, like suppose, and if the input is an array for you, it will repeat this particular series of steps again and again for all your for a number of inputs. Suppose if the number of inputs was 1, it will just show this. If the number of inputs was 2, it will show you 2 values here without having to add anything here. So it will just use this as a reference and it will just keep on repeating this, whatever values you're passing in the source data. You can also preview it, your data from here. It will take some time to load, but you see, I've just configured it for one of the values, but since my custom JSON we're having 2 elements, it's gonna do that for both of these. So that is what the repeat properties will work for this particular Flexcard. So let me quickly activate it. So once my activation is done, I can come back to my Omniscripts, and for the Flexcard to run, you must activate this particular Omniscript also. But just before that, we need to see how we can add this particular Flexcard here. So once I'm done with this IP callout, I will drag another step, another page here, and then I should add my Flexcard. But if you go to this particular build, you won't see something like Flexcard here. So to add a Flexcard, you'll have to choose something like a custom Lightning Web Component. The Flexcard or the Omniscript, this gets saved in the form of Lightning Web Components. So if you drag this particular component here, and then you have to choose your particular Lightning Web Components name. So for Flexcard, it will something like of a format like whatever your Flexcard name was, say here it was travel quote info, and then it will be prefixed with a CF stating it's a Flexcard. So you can choose this particular CF travel quote info. It will, I mean, you also have an option like choosing _1 _2, which is like which version you want to use, but it's better to use this particular name, which will automatically pick the latest active version for you. So now that once is done, you can drag this, but this particular Flexcard is expecting some values. How can you pass the values to it? So in this custom Lightning Web properties, expand that, you can pass your key values pair here. Now suppose whenever you are choosing the data source of your Flexcard as a custom, you need to pass this parent data as true. That's the name, the key, and this should be passed as true here. And then whatever values you are sending there, so that should come in this fixed keyword like records. And what values you are sending there, you are sending here trip code. So whatever value I was getting in my IP in the trip code nodes, I'm sending this particular array here. So this value will be passed on to this Flexcard and all the values will be displayed like this there. So let me quickly activate my Omniscript because without activating this, my Flexcard won't be visible. So once my this Omniscript is activated, let me go to preview mode. You can also clear your logs for whatever actions you're doing so that you're not confused with what is happening. Then for the same lead ID, I'm going to get my initial values. Let me choose a place to travel to. From traveling, how many persons are coming with me? What is my total budget? What's my expected day of travel? Say, for example, it's May 1st and I'm traveling for 3 days. So when I click on this get codes, it's going to call my IP, get all those trip codes for me, and it should display my trip details also. So see, this will display your trip details for you. Just let me close this and yeah, you should be able to see this Flexcard in a more better view. Now you can see this trip name is coming and this was this particular for 5 days. That's the cost and that's a brief description about this. You can also go to this link which will take you to the site. When you are in this Omniscript, this won't navigate you, but once you have embedded that particular Omniscript, say in a Lightning page or any other place, this will open that link for you. Inside the preview mode, it's not possible currently. Now, suppose let's choose a trip to go forward. Suppose I'm going with the first one itself. So I'll check this trip. So let's see what action it does for me. Ideally, it should fire a event with an updated value for me. So let's go to that particular event which we have set up in the Flexcard. In the setup, there'll be an event listener for you. In the update OS, you are passing something in the travel codes node and in the selected trip details key. So let's see if those are there or not. Let me search. Yeah, travel codes is there. Inside that we have having this selected trip details also. It's an array. So let me expand this value and see. This 5 days trip is coming. The same I've chosen here. The code for this, what are the trip costs? This value is selected is also coming as true, which was initially set to false here. The trip link, the trip date description, everything will come here. So you can use this as a reference like, yeah, the user went ahead and chose this particular trip. So that's why this value is coming here. So that is how you can embed a flex card in your Omniscript and you can interact with that. You can pass some value to it. You can also get some values or whatever actions you're doing in the flex card back to your Omniscripts as well using those standard events. All this using point and click. So now once you're showing all your details and choosing which trip code you want to go ahead with, what's our next job? Post all this information in Salesforce. So when I click on this particular next, it's showing me something like I have chosen this particular trip, which is correct. Like I've chosen this Rishikesh 5 days at 5,000 rupees. That's what trip I chose. And then it's asking me for some actions like whether I should accept the trip, reject this code, and or go for a callback. So how have we done that? Let's have a look at this in the design mode. So another step needs to be dragged here. I've named this as confirm say trip. And here I'm just displaying a text box here. So for this, I can just have a text display here. Just type text and drag it here. And here you can set your text values. This will open a rich text editor for you. And you can set something like you have selected this particular trip. And then you can give the path for this. So this travel codes info is the name of the step, which is this travel codes info. Inside that you're having this travel codes, which is this node which you have given. Then we were passing values in this selected trip details. So I'm getting this also. And from there, just choose the first value which I've selected, which is the first. Obviously, I'll only have one value here. So that's why the first name here, the first element of the array here. Then the trip name, then the trip cost here. That is how I've configured this particular text properties here. You can also like use it for more designing, like I've made this as bold. So you can just go here and make this as bold. This particular line at, this is also bold. I can do it like this. I can make this as italics and I can maybe make this as blocks, heading, something. So anything is possible for this. You can also have a source code like this and you can write something in HTML that will create a rich text editor for you. So this is how the values will be displayed here using this text editor or the text display. And then what action I want to go ahead and move forward with. So this I've chosen another select values here. It's rather it's a radio button which I'm chosen here. So apart from this select, you can also have a radio. So this what it does is like it gives you a more different kind of options here. Like see, this is somewhat coming as an image for you. So you want to show your values as an image. You're having less amount of values here. So instead of having those drop downs, you can just show it in a more better way, like having this images. So you can choose your display mode as image. It should be a required field for us to, and you can set your width and height of this particular image and how many image you want to show in a particular row. And like just like the select, you can also have a source for this. So the option source can be S object, it can be manual too. So suppose for us it's S object and I'm getting all those values from my object, which is account trip details dot. the field name, which is the code status. So it can either be accepted, reject, or callback. The advantage with this is like we don't have to then suppose I'm changing some API value of those pick lists. So you don't have to come again back to your Omniscript and do it again and again. So whatever change we do in this particular field, that will be reflected back to the Omniscript without doing anything here. That is how you got your accepted, reject, and callback options to choose. Now suppose if I'm choosing accepted, I would just go for and put other details also. I would want like how many travelers are coming with that particular person. So for this, we have an inbuilt edit block where you can simply like add, delete, clear the list of or user list you can do for that. So let me just go in the build and type edit block. And also like if you want to see more information on this, you can just click on this question mark icon. What is this edit block? It will help you create, edit, and delete multiple Salesforce or external records on this page using edit block. Example, like you're collecting an accounts or contact information. So here we are collecting the list of travelers which are going to travel with that person. Also, like it has linked to specific some kind of use cases, how you can do those things. Those can be easily visible here. So to drag this edit block, you're going to use this edit group and drag it here. And once you're inside this edit block, you have to click on this pencil icon, which will start displaying what can be inside this edit block. I mean, what kind of fields you can add here. So you can add any text property, any select properties, but you cannot add any custom LWCs here. That's one feature, or you can say limitation for this edit blocks. So now suppose I've dragged a text here. So I'll just type a text and I'll just drag this particular text and put it inside this edit block itself. The rest of the things will remain same as we saw in the earlier, like for the first name. Then comes the gender. So this is a select property which I've chosen, which is a drop down, and the source here we have given it as manual. So it can be male or female. So for the this, if you choose this option as manual, you can add your values here too. Like the value will be male, label will be male. You can also make this as default value. So basically it will mean like by default male is chosen. You can also click on this auto advance, which basically means like when you click on this particular value, it will take you to another step on which basis the condition is there. So it will advance the user to the next step when they click on this without even clicking on the next button here. So that is the advantage of using this auto advance. So once I get all this additional information, I'm also like asking for any specific additional comments, like they want to say something, like any other specific information they want to specify. So kind of a notes kind of thing for the agent so that they can add inside a text area properties. And suppose like if the user didn't go ahead with the accept option, he went with the reject option. So what will happen is we'll come to this reject step and we'll just show a normal display message here. But hold on, how can I know like since this is a sequential series of steps, but can I skip a particular step? Yes, this can be done using those conditional views. So what I've done here is for this particular trip code status, that's the name. And in this particular step, I've given a condition here. So your step also can be conditional. So I've given a condition like trip code equal to accepted. So only if I accept that particular code, only then I'll take this information, else there's no need of taking the information. How can I put that condition here? This is via this conditional view. And if you see show element if true, if the trip code is equal to accepted, then it will show this part. For the reject, similar thing, I've given a condition. If I choose reject or callback, I'm just going to show this particular step. So that's how it will set you up for the conditional values or the conditional step rendering. The next job is to actually save those step details and navigate to a particular account for that. So let's have a look at that too. So just before that, we are going to use a selected trip. We have to do some setup here, set values which I need to pass to my integration procedure. So let's have a look at that. But let me first deactivate this Omniscript. So once it's deactivated, let me have a look at this set values. So what I'm doing is I'm just choosing the trip name, the trip ID, and the trip code budget, because I don't want to pass all the values of that particular node. I want to keep my JSON node which I'm passing to my IP to post the data. I just need to pass my trip name, trip ID, and trip code budget. I'm just storing those kind of values here, which basically means like, I mean, for the trip which I'm selecting, I'm just passing this trip name, this trip ID, and that was the budget. So that's the only information I want to store for whichever trip I'm selecting here. So that's why I've just put this set values. So like it can be a use case like you don't need to send all the values, but you need to send it in a form of say JSON format. You can use this particular set values. You can also add another elements here that will set it up for you. How did it did that? Like just go to any of this add new value. Let's just go for this test, use expression and just click on save. And once you're onto that, you can go to edit properties as JSON and you can now just declare it as an object here. So you can have your key value pair here also, like test1 is equal to test1, something like that. You can put it always. Let me just remove that because it's not required by us currently. You can also add the merge field here, which is like I'm passing my trip codes info, whichever trip I was selecting. Just make a note like this should be inside the merge field and should be inside our quotes here because it's inside a set values. This should be within double quotes, and since we are referencing a value, it should always be using this merge field symbol. So once I'm done with that, I'm gonna call my IP, which will create account and account trip details for me if I'm going with say accepting this particular proposal or the particular quotes. And then if suppose if I'm only rejecting that thing, I'll just show some basic information about the account and some basic details. And I'm just gonna come out of that afterwards. And so let's have a look at this IP. So dragging the IP is similar to what we did for the HTTP callout. And let's have a look like what properties we are passing to it. So it's an extra payload. I'm passing my trip details, which is this particular step, like which place I'm traveling to and things like that. I'm also passing the lead info for the account to be created. So all this first name, middle name, last name, email, phone number will come here. Next, we are passing the selected trip. So this is the set value which we just set here. Like we're just passing only few values of whatever trip I did select. Then we are passing this confirm trip node, which is like what values I'm passing here, which is like whether I accepted it or rejected it or I'm going for a callback. So that is how I configured my integration procedure to pass the values in the remote properties. If you see like there's a checkbox called send only extra payload, which basically means like I'm only sending this values. If I don't send this, it will just pass on the whole Omnis JSON to that. And I don't want my IP to be very heavy and passing of data to be very heavy. I just want to pass this attribute so I can just use this extra payload and pass on the value here. So let's have a look at this particular IP, which is this trip codes. So the type is trip and the subtype is codes. So that's why the name here trip codes, trip underscore codes. And here I'm using a conditional block. Why I'm using a conditional block? The reason being is if I'm accepting the case, I'm just gonna call this particular data raptor, which will create account and account trip details for me, or else I'm just gonna create an account for me. So for this conditional block, I can just drag this particular conditional block here. And for this particular data wrapper to be run, I'm just gonna put an execution condition formula. So just like you saw that in the Omniscript, this particular step was conditional, like the reject hold, it is having this condition. Likewise, even for the IP, you are having a execution condition formula, which basically means like only if this condition is true, then execute this particular element, else do not execute that particular element. So here, if I'm choosing this as accepted, which is like the confirm trip, which I am passing it on from the OS or the Omniscript. Confirm trip, if I'm passing it as the trip code status, if that is accepted, I'm going to run this particular data raptor, or else I'm going to run the other one. So let's have a look at both of these data raptor, and these are of type data raptor post, which is basically doing those DML operations for me. So let me just open this particular dr post trip codes. So meanwhile, it's taking some time to load. Let's maybe open it from the data raptor node here. So the dr create account, that is one of the data raptors, and there is one dr post trip codes. So let's see, search for our dr trip codes. Here it is. So let me open this. What are we passing this for this data raptor as your input? I'm not passing anything, which basically means whatever data JSON is coming in the IP, that will be passed on to it. If you want, you can just pass us those particular trim nodes also, but here, like for this post trip codes, what I need is I need all those values to be there, whatever I'm passing to the integration procedure. So that's why I'm just notifying anything here. You can also specify specified inputs which you can send via this additional input here. Let me quickly deactivate this. So if you click on this add key value pair, you can just say, you can pass any value like test1 and say it can be your merge field test1. So you can pass this value as your addition input too. So let's come back to this data raptor, which is post. So the name of the post would be data raptor. I mean, the interface type would be load. If you choose this as load option, and your input type will be JSON and output will be obviously an S object because you're inserting something here. So for me, I'm creating an account, and after the account, I will create a account trip details. So account trip details looks up to an account. So that's why we have created a link object here. And how are they linked here, which is the account field of this particular account trip detail object, that will be equal to the account, which is the first one, this ID. So it's something like account trip dot account equal to account dot ID, something like that we are writing here. Choose the first object, choose your second object. If three, you can choose three also. Now we have to do the mapping for this. So for this, we'll go to the fields, which basically would mean like as per your input JSON. So just like you did for the extract or say the turbo, or you can say for the transforms, you can just pass this particular input JSON here, which is like what input can be expected here. So we can pass this value here and it will automatically bring all the nodes for you. So you won't have to type again and again or like search like, yeah, it will be something inside this or that. So for this, what we're doing is for the account, we are creating a formula field called account name. Why? Because it doesn't have a account doesn't have a first name or a last name field. We can just directly use this as a formula field. In the formula field, what I'm doing is I'm simply concatenating this one. So whatever I'm getting in this lead info, the lead info first name and the lead info last name. So I'm concatenating those and I'm putting it into a formula called account name. So this account name will serve as a input to my name field of the account object. Likewise, I'm going to add a lead alternate phone to my alternate phone field. Likewise, lead phone to a phone field here. Let's just, or I mean, say for example, you're going to use this trip ID. Maybe you're passing it on to say any field of this particular, say this company ID and the account. So you can map this here. Again, whatever values you're adding, I mean, which fields, those will be available here in this domain object field. Same for the input JSON path if you have specified in the expected input JSON here. So let me delete this part as it's not required here. The next part would be to do the mapping for this account trip detail object. So what I'm doing again is like putting those trip code status in this code status field, trip ID in this code ID field, the budget in this code budget, and likewise like which location I'm traveling to will come in this trip location, which I'm traveling from, it will be in this field. So likewise, so this right hand side is the API name of all the fields of this account trip details object. And what values should be fed here is like whatever value we are getting from the input JSON. So those values should go in this particular exact fields. You can also see an overview of all your fields at one go using this all one. And once you click on preview, you can just test it out whether it's creating an account for you or not. So let's just click on this execute. See, it's creating an account for you and account trip detail for you too. And it's also giving you those IDs. So that is how your post trip codes would work. Similar, the dr post reject hold, it will just create an account for me. So let me search what is the name here, Data Raptor post trip account. So let me go to my Data Raptor list, post trip account. Here it is. Let's open that. So it's also a load, and you can specify your input JSON. But here I'm just creating the account object here, and I don't want to store any other fields here as of now. It's up to you, up to your business logic, how it will be. But just to differentiate between the reject and the accepted scenario, I just wanted to show that part. So again, this account name will have this formula field, and I'm mapping the phone, alternate phone, which I'm getting from the Omniscript to this alternate phone of the account object, this field of the account object. Likewise goes for the phone number also. That's how I differentiate between a reject and a accepted one. So for this, if you see, the condition would be something like trip code status equal to rejected or trip code status equal to callback. So once I'm done with this conditional block execution, I'm gonna get my account ID. So this will come in a different specific format, which is like if I'm getting it as accepted, I'm going to take it from this particular node. If I'm getting this as a rejected, I'm going to take from this particular node. So you can also write your if condition inside your set values of this integration procedures, and likewise you can execute your values which you want to do. Why such thing? Because this dr post accepted will give the account ID which is there in this format only. So let's quickly have a look at that. So you can click on this edit. I mean, you can also add your parameters like this, or you can click on this edit as JSON in the preview mode, and you can just paste your JSON value which you are passing. Let's click on execute and see you're getting your account ID. And let's have a look at this execution sequence once. So the conditional block ran, the reject ran because I was passing the value as rejected here. And then I'm setting my account and I'm returning something. So let's have a look at this, how this is coming here. So for this reject hold debug, what input I'm passing to this, I'm passing this like uh, lead info, I'm passing it here. I'm passing this confirm trip here. I'm passing the selected trip here. I'm passing the trip details here. What response I got here? To see, you're getting the response in this kind of format, like account underscore one. Inside this, you're having this particular ID and your name. Likewise, suppose let's go for accepted. You can keep changing your values here, and you can also test your different scenarios. If I click on execute here, it's again creating an account for me. But let's have a look at the execution sequence. See, it is running post accepted data raptor. So ideally, I should have dr accepted debug and dr accepted values here in the debug logs. So here I'm passing all my inputs here, and in the accepted, it will create something like this. So account is coming in account underscore one, and this is coming in underscore two. That's how the data raptor post returns. There's no like specific reason, but that's how it returns the value. But we can think it as like, since the account is getting inserted first, it's giving this as one, and then the account trip details is getting inserted, it's giving this as two. And then inside this array part, you can have your values here. So if you go to the set values, the same thing in the dr post accepted in the account underscore one, I was getting the first element and I'm getting the ID here. So setting this account ID as per the condition, like if it's accepted, give it here. If it's not accepted, take the values from here. So this will help, like I'm doing the calculation here itself, and I'm just have to reference this particular round of account ID, not do something like if this, say for example, if it was accepted, then go to this, or if it was rejected, then go to this. So don't have to put that again and again in all the actions. I can simply do it via set values. And in the response action, I'm just passing on this account ID, which I'm getting it from the set values. So I've chosen only this return. So that's why only this lightweight value is returned from my integration procedure. Let me activate this, because without activating the IP, it won't run inside our data, the Omniscripts. Sorry. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to navigate to a particular account, the same account which I'm getting from the integration procedure. So for this, you need to drag a navigate action here. And once you go to the properties, what you want to do is you want to navigate it to a record page, you want to navigate to another object, or how it can be. So I'm choosing a record because I want to go to a record page of an account. Which object? I can specify the name here. How I should see it? View mode, edit mode, clone mode. I should show it as view mode. And this account ID which I'm getting from the integration procedure, that should be the ID which I'm navigating it to. Again, this navigation will not work in the preview mode, but it will work in the when it's embedded in a page. So that is how your Omniscript implementation was, Omniscript integration procedures and data raptors do. Let's just go to any of the late records here. And let me open any of my open leads here. Let's choose Tom. And if you come here, see there is a start trip plan button here. This basically will open a Omniscript for me. So whatever I was seeing in the preview mode, this is in active mode now. So I'm getting this error. That's because our Omniscript is not activated. So let's activate it. So this is activated. Now let's go to the lead record once again. Let's just refresh the page once or close this Omniscript again. And I'm in the lead record. Let's go to the start trip plan. That's going to open the Omniscript for me, and you see the same name, the phone number are getting carried forward here. Let me click on next, and let's choose the same location. Rishikesh. I'm traveling with, say, 3 persons now, with a budget of 15,000, and say for example my expected date of travel would be 4th of April. I want to travel for 3 days maybe. Let's get the code for this. See, I'm getting this two codes basically here. So let me show this particular get full details link. So if I click on that, so as we see, like in the preview mode this didn't work, but when you are in a lightning page or outside the preview mode, this will start working for you. And let me just choose this particular trip and go ahead with that, and let's click on next. So see, I'm getting this 5 days at 5,000 rupees, and suppose I want to go ahead and accept it. Let me click on next now. So that's the edit block which we configured here. So let me add a passenger, say for example James. Once I click on this save, it will create a card for me here. I can again go here and edit James, say Jones. Click on save. That's gonna edit for me. I can also want and delete this particular one, which will ask me for a confirmation. Yes, delete it, or and then maybe add Amy in the trip, maybe Jones. Didn't want to go ahead with that. So click on save. and is also coming with us. So let's go with another value here. So this two, you see, you can see those two are already added. So all this using just some few configurations and point and click. Additional comments need a translator, say for example. Let's go to next. This should ideally create an account for me in the backend, and see it navigated to the account record only. And if you see in the related list, I'm having this account trip details also. The quote was accepted. I'm going to travel to Rishikesh location. This account had the basic details like who was the owner, what was the account name, what was the phone number. Let's open this account trip details, which will have some more information about our trip. So this travel date came 3 days. The travel budget was 15,000. I'm getting the quote as 5,000. What was the quote ID? It was accepted. For which account? Everything is there. That's how the complete flow of this Omniscript looks like. Now you must be wondering how this particular button came in this particular page. So let's go to the lead object. For this, we have done created a button, links and action. So for this, you need to go on this new button or link, and that should open up a model for you. And here you have to put your options, like I'm choosing this as a detail page button so that I can add it in the page layout. I can give that label name here of the button, and then I need to give this URL. So this is a specific way of embedding your Omniscript inside any of your lightning page, which is being displayed as a button. So this lightning CMP that would be fixed here. So this Omnistudio, if you see this part, this will be the namespace. So that's why the namespace was, we have to know those namespace. It can be Velocity INS for someone, it can be Omnistudio for someone. So you need to specify which namespace we are in, and then we have to specify underscore underscore, and then this is a fixed value, I would say, Velocity LWC Omni wrapper. So inside this, your Omniscript will be embedded. Now here I need to pass some attributes, which is the first one is the target, which is the name of your Omniscript. It starts with C since it's a Lightning Web component. Travel Co English. So type, subtype, and the language. If you notice, the type here is it starts with T capital Travel Co, but you have to give a small letter here. So just be careful of this. It's just a nomenclature way we have to go for this. The layout will show the Newport theme, or it can show the Lightning theme. So that's up to you. I've chosen Newport theme as of now because personally I like that better. Any icon you want to show, it can be any utility icon you need to show. What should be the tab label? It should be start trip, which is what we were seeing it here. Start trip. And then the context ID. So while previewing it in the Omniscript, we were passing this context ID. So this is getting passed on here with the lead ID. So whatever is the record ID of the lead, that's going to pass here. That is how we have configured this particular button. Now this button needs to be added in your Lightning page. Just go to the Lightning page layout. You can open any of your lead page where you want this to be added. And just under mobile and Lightning actions, you will find your particular button you have already created. So this start trip plan, you can drag it here, and this is what I was seeing here. So that is how you configure this Omniscript to be embedded in a Lightning page as a button. So when you click on this button, this will open it in a subtab for you, and your Omniscript will start. So that's how it is. Hope you like this course. And for further readings, you can go to this documentation of Omnistudio, which is having, or you can simply just type Omnistudio documentation in your Chrome. You can open the first link which pops up. Also for this trailhead, I refer to go through this particular trailhead where you will get more in-depth knowledge about this. So just go to get to know Omnistudio, where you'll know the architecture, you'll know what are Flexcard, what are Omniscript integration procedures, and data raptors. So basic start for you all. So that's it for me. Also, guys, you can import and export this Omniscript. So you can go to the Omniscript, you have the option of export. So when you click on this export, it will start creating a data pack for you. And if you see, if it has the Omniscript, it has all the data raptors we have used, all the integration procedures we have used. You can select all of these. You can select a few of them that up to you. Now, if I click on next, it will just ask for a confirmation if everything is correct or not. You can just click on this download. And once you're done, a data JSON file will be there in your system, which you can use to import in the other org where you want to use this Omniscript or your data raptor or your integration procedure. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to have your feedback in comments, and do like and subscribe to my channel. Do let me know in comments if there is any other topic you want a crash course for. Till then, happy learning and bye.